everyone, and welcome to a deep dive where we're going to explore how to deal with toxic people. We're diving deep into the wisdom path today, and I'm so excited to have our expert here with us to break down some of the really helpful advice.
You know, it really is a common experience, and the wisdom path really acknowledges that. I mean, everybody's dealt with someone who's, not the greatest to be around.
For sure.
It's like the wisdom path jumps right into recognizing those people who might seem all friendly, but then you end up, feeling kind of drained and maybe even manipulated. They call it sugar-coated poison.
Yeah, have you ever experienced that? Like someone's just too nice.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, something's a little off here.
You get that feeling.
Yeah. The wisdom path connects this to the research of Dr. Paul Ekman
Interesting.
about microexpressions.
Okay.
So it's like these really subtle facial expressions that can give away someone's true emotions, even if they're trying to hide them.
Oh, so even if they're trying to put on a show, their face will betray how they're actually feeling.
Totally.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah.
For sure.
So a genuine smile reaches your eyes and your eyes crinkle.
Right.
But if someone's faking a smile,
Yeah.
a lot of times their eyes will stay the same, even if they're
Yeah.
smiling with their mouth.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a good reminder to trust your gut.
Yeah.
If something feels off, it probably is.
It probably is.
The wisdom path talks about, staying polite, but guarded in those situations. Don't overshare.
Yeah.
Too much personal stuff until you get a better read on the person and you see that their words and actions are actually matching up.
Consistency is key.
Right.
You want to make sure they're walking their talk.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so what about those, those confrontations you can't really avoid?
Oh, yeah.
Like those unnecessary arguments that just drain you. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, for sure.
So picture this. You're at a family gathering, and that one relative just starts in on you criticizing your job or something. Oh my gosh, I can feel my blood pressure rising already.
Right.
Just thinking about it.
And it's so easy to get sucked into those debates, especially when it's family.
Yeah.
But, the wisdom path makes a really good point. You don't have to fight every battle,
Right.
especially when you know that person is just trying to push your buttons.
Right.
There's a great Dalai Lama quote they share. Sometimes silence is the best answer.
I love that quote.
So true.
It's like taking that pause
Yeah,
before reacting
exactly.
and asking yourself, is this really going to be productive, or am I just setting myself up for a headache?
Right. Choose your battles wisely. They suggest some really cool ways to disengage from those arguments
Yeah.
without getting down to their level.
Oh, that's good. I need that.
And you can just respond with something neutral, like, I see your point, or that's interesting.
Okay.
You're acknowledging what they said, but you're not necessarily agreeing with them.
Okay.
It's like a neutralizer.
And I like that I'm putting that in my back pocket. All right, good. So what if they just won't let it go?
Yeah, they keep going.
The wisdom path suggests subtly changing the topic to something less,
Right.
heated. Or you can politely excuse yourself from the conversation, and if someone keeps, pushing your buttons, it might be time to just set a firm boundary.
Yeah,
I'd rather not discuss this right now.
right. Shut it down. It's a reminder that we actually have more power than we realize in these situations.
Sure.
Sometimes walking away is the best way to win.
Sometimes, yeah, I gotta walk away. Okay, so let's talk about when someone does something really hurtful, like a coworker spreading rumors. The wisdom path talks about forgiving but not forgetting.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
How do we balance those two?
Yeah, that is a tough one. And they dive into the nuances of forgiveness.
Yeah.
They emphasize it's not about saying what they did was okay.
Okay.
It's about freeing yourself
Right.
from the anger and the resentment you might be holding on to.
So it's more about letting go of the negative emotions that are weighing you down.
Exactly. But you don't just forget what happened. Remembering is about learning from it.
Okay.
Protecting yourself from getting hurt again. It's like that saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Right.
So forgive for your own peace of mind,
Uh-huh.
but remember so you can set boundaries and not fall into that trap again.
I like that. So forgive, but don't forget. Okay, this next part of the wisdom path really speaks to me. It's about mastering your emotional control.
Oh, yeah.
They describe it like remaining calm in the middle of a storm.
I love that imagery. It's about resilience, right?
Right.
Just because there's chaos around you doesn't mean you have to get swept up in it. You can stay grounded.
Yeah.
The wisdom path talks about Dr. Daniel Goleman's work
Oh, yeah.
on emotional intelligence. And he says self-awareness is the foundation for emotional control.
So being aware of what you're feeling
Yes.
as it's coming up,
Yes.
but not immediately like reacting to it.
Exactly. It's like hitting the pause button
Yeah.
before you respond. The wisdom path suggests using visualization to help you stay calm. So imagine yourself as like a really strong tree,
Yeah.
rooted in the ground, and you're just like unwavering even when the wind's blowing all around you.
That's a great visualization. I like that. They also talk about reframing those negative words and actions that are thrown your way.
Yeah.
Like instead of taking it personally,
Right.
just remind yourself, okay, their words say more about them than they do about me.
Totally. It's detaching from that negativity
Right.
and protecting your own sense of worth.
Okay, let's talk boundaries.
Okay.
I know that can be a tough one for a lot of people. The wisdom path has this great analogy. It's like building a fence around your energy.
I love that. It's so true. Like without those boundaries, toxic people can just walk all over you.
Right.
They use the example of a coworker who's always dumping their work on you,
Uh-huh.
and you feel obligated to help,
Oh, yeah.
but then you end up feeling resentful.
Been there. So how do you actually set boundaries effectively? Especially if you hate conflict.
Well, they give some clear advice. First, be direct but respectful.
Right.
Like you could say, I'm not able to take that on right now. Or, I have a lot on my plate already. You don't need to over-explain.
Right.
You don't have to apologize.
Right.
Just be clear.
So be assertive but not aggressive.
Exactly. And here's the key. You have to follow through. If someone keeps pushing your boundaries, you have to remind them. Or even set consequences.
Right. It reminds me of this time when I had a friend who would call me super late at night
Oh, no.
to vent about their problems.
Yeah.
And it was starting to really mess with my sleep and my energy. So I finally had to set a boundary and say, hey, I'm not available after this certain time.
Wow. That's a hard conversation to have.
It was. But you know what? She actually respected it.
Good.
And honestly, our friendship actually got better because I wasn't so resentful.
That's awesome. It's a great example of how setting boundaries can actually improve your relationships. It's not about pushing people away, it's about taking care of yourself and creating those healthy dynamics.
Yeah.
So we've covered a lot here.
Yeah.
I think maybe it's time for a quick break. What do you think?
Yeah, I could use a breather. Let's take a pause and we'll be right back.
Sounds good. All right, so we're back and, diving deeper into the wisdom path and all this great advice on how to deal with toxic people. It feels like we're really equipping you with a lot of tools to protect yourself.
Yeah, it's like building a survival kit,
Yeah.
right? Like an emotional survival kit. And the wisdom path goes even further with this idea of protecting your energy.
Oh, yeah.
Like they have this really powerful image of a toxic person entering a room
Okay.
and the whole atmosphere shifts.
Oh, I can feel that.
It's like they're sucking the positive energy out of the air.
It's like a vacuum cleaner of good vibes.
Right, right.
Yeah. And the wisdom path compares it to leaving your front door wide open for a thief to just come in and take your stuff. Like,
Yeah.
you wouldn't do that with your physical possessions, right? So why would you do it with your energy?
That's so true. So how do we lock the door on those energy vampires? Like, what can we do to protect ourselves?
Well, the wisdom path has some suggestions.
Okay.
First, you want to limit your exposure to them.
Okay.
So that might mean spending less time with them or keeping conversations short or just avoiding situations where you know they're going to be present.
Okay, so like choosing your battles.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's just not worth it.
Right.
It's just too draining.
Yeah.
They also talk about using mental distancing techniques. Like, picture yourself surrounded by this invisible shield, and it's deflecting all their negativity.
Okay, I like that.
Or visualize yourself as like that strong tree rooted in the ground, unfazed by the wind blowing all around you.
Oh, I love those visualizations. It's like creating your own personal force field.
Right.
Yeah.
And don't forget about self-care.
Oh, yeah.
It's so important to do things that replenish your energy, especially after being around those kind of people. So spend time in nature, meditate, listen to music that makes you happy, anything that really lifts you up.
So it's like an antidote.
Yeah, it's like a prescription for your emotional well-being.
Okay, so speaking of emotional well-being, the wisdom path talks about emotional detachment.
Oh, yes.
And I love how they explain it. They use this analogy of changing the channel on the radio.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you're listening to a station and it's just all static and negativity, you just switch to a different station.
That's such a good point.
Right. It reminds us that we have control over what we allow into our minds.
For sure. We have the remote control.
Yeah, exactly. So it's about not letting someone else's negativity like to take over your own emotions. You don't have to let them dictate how you feel.
It's about choosing your own channel.
Right.
They give the example of getting a really rude email from a coworker, and your first instinct might be to just fire back a response, right? But emotional detachment means taking a deep breath
Okay.
and choosing to respond calmly, or maybe not responding at all.
Oh, right. It's like not giving them the satisfaction of seeing you get upset.
Exactly. The wisdom path says it perfectly. Their emotions are not your responsibility. You can acknowledge their feelings without getting sucked into all the drama.
So it's like staying grounded in your own peace, no matter what's happening externally. Right, so here's something I think we've all done at some point. Trying to change toxic people.
Oh yeah, we all have that fixer in us.
Right, like we think we can fix them.
You think we can save the day.
Yeah, and the wisdom path uses this analogy that I just love. They say, trying to change a toxic person is like trying to teach a fish to climb a tree.
I love that. It's so true. You're going to wear yourself out and the fish is not going to be happy.
Exactly. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
And it's just not going to happen.
It's just not going to happen.
So instead of focusing on changing them, the wisdom path says we need to shift our focus to changing our own response.
Right, how we react to them.
Yeah, it's about accepting that some people are just going to be toxic, and that's okay. It's not our job to fix them.
And remember those boundaries.
Right.
And if you need to walk away from the situation entirely.
There's that Maya Angelou quote that's like my mantra. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time.
Oh, that's so good.
Right. Okay, let's switch gears for a minute and talk about the importance of surrounding yourself with positive people.
Huge, yeah.
The wisdom path talks about how much your social circle impacts your overall well-being. Like, think about how you feel when you're around people who are laughing and encouraging you.
Totally.
Now, compare that to being around people who are just negative and complaining all the time.
Night and day. We're like,
Completely different experience.
and the wisdom path says we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with.
Oh, wow.
So that's something to really think about. Are the people you're spending time with lifting you up or dragging you down?
So if we want more positivity in our lives, we really need to be mindful of who we let into our inner circle.
Yeah, choose wisely. Quality over quantity.
Absolutely. Okay, so building on this whole idea of creating a positive environment, the wisdom path goes into this concept of prioritizing inner peace.
Oh, yes.
And they use this beautiful analogy of the mind as a garden.
I love that.
So it's like we need to protect our mental gardens from the weeds of those toxic influences.
Right, we got to pull those weeds out.
Yeah. And they really emphasize that your peace is your responsibility. No one can take it away from you unless you let them.
Yeah, the power.
Yeah. So it's about creating that sanctuary within yourself.
Yeah, your own little oasis.
Exactly, where you can go to recharge no matter what craziness is happening outside.
I love that.
Yeah.
So how do we create that oasis? How do we cultivate that inner peace?
Well, the wisdom path gives us some really practical ways.
Okay, I'm ready.
So one is practicing mindfulness,
Right.
which helps you stay present
Yeah.
and avoid dwelling on all those negative thoughts.
Like, be here now.
Yes.
Don't get caught up in the past or worry about the future. Just be present.
Being present is key. It helps you detach from all that drama.
Yeah.
Another tip they give is learning to let go. Like, not everything needs your reaction
Right.
or your energy.
Choose what you give your energy to.
Exactly. And sometimes the best response is no response at all.
Silence is golden.
Yes. And they also encourage daily affirmations.
Oh, I love affirmations.
Like statements that reinforce your commitment to your own peace.
Yeah.
It could be something as simple as, my peace is more important than their trauma.
I love that. So powerful. It's so easy to get caught up in the chaos.
Right.
But ultimately, our inner peace is what allows us to navigate it all with grace.
Totally. So they also give some bonus tips in the wisdom path that I thought were really insightful.
Oh, yeah. Let's hear them.
One is the power of silence,
Yeah.
which we talked about a little bit earlier.
So good.
And they point out that a lot of times toxic people thrive on drama. They want to see you get upset.
They want a reaction.
Exactly.
Any reaction.
Yeah. And by staying silent, you're denying them that satisfaction.
Yeah.
It's like taking the wind out of their sails.
It's like that Buddha quote. Do not speak unless it improves upon the silence. Oh, I love that. Sometimes the most powerful response is no response.
So true. Another bonus tip they have is responding instead of reacting.
Okay, I like that. What's the difference?
It's about becoming more conscious of how you respond to things and choosing how you want to engage
Yeah.
instead of just like knee-jerk reacting.
Right, so it's like being more intentional.
Yes. They compare it to a captain steering a ship through a storm.
Okay.
Like, instead of panicking and letting the waves toss him around, he adjusts his sails and he navigates with purpose.
So he stays in control.
Exactly. It's about choosing to stay in control even when things feel chaotic.
I love that. So how do we do that? How do we become more responsive and less reactive?
Well, they give some great advice. Pause before you say anything.
Right.
Like, give yourself time to really think and process your emotions.
That pause can be so powerful.
It really can. It creates that space for you to make a conscious choice.
I like that.
And then when you do speak calmly and clearly. You don't need to over-explain or justify yourself.
Just get to the point.
Exactly. It's about communicating effectively without letting your emotions get the best of you.
Got it. What's the next tip?
Hey, this one's a big one. Walking away when it's necessary.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes you just gotta walk away.
Right.
It's about self-preservation.
Yes. The wisdom path uses this image of carrying a backpack full of rocks. And each rock represents like a toxic person or situation. And walking away is like setting that backpack down. It's freeing yourself from that burden.
I feel lighter already.
Right. And it's about realizing that you don't have to put up with everything. You have the power to choose. You can choose what you allow into your life.
You're not a victim. You have choices.
Exactly. And remember, walking away is not weak.
No.
It's a sign of strength and wisdom and self-respect.
Sometimes it's the strongest thing you can do.
Yeah. Okay, so the wisdom path also talks about turning pain into growth,
Oh, interesting.
which I think is so powerful. Like, it's so easy to just get stuck in the negativity when you've been hurt. But they encourage us to reframe those experiences as opportunities to learn and grow.
Okay, so like instead of seeing those difficult people or situations as setbacks, see them as challenges that are helping you to become stronger?
Yeah. Like lifting weights,
Oh, yeah.
you know. At first it's really hard
Yeah.
and it's challenging,
Yeah.
but over time you build those muscles.
I think it's stronger.
Right.
So what can I learn from this experience?
Exactly. And then speaking of growth, the wisdom path
Yeah.
emphasizes this idea that we have the power to choose our own happiness.
Oh, I love that.
Toxic people might try to control how you feel.
Yeah, they try to bring you down to their level.
Right. But ultimately, your happiness is up to you.
It's an inside job.
It is.
Yeah.
And they encourage us to start our mornings with gratitude.
Oh, yeah.
Spend time with people who lift us up.
Yes.
And use affirmations to remind ourselves that we have the power to choose joy.
It's about taking back control.
It is. So we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
The wisdom path is like this treasure trove of strategies for dealing with toxic people.
It's like a masterclass in emotional intelligence.
It really is. So before we wrap up, I'd love to hear, what's your biggest takeaway from the wisdom path? What's that one thing that you really want listeners to remember?
You know, for me, it all comes down to this. You have the power to choose how you respond to toxicity. You can't control other people's behavior,
Right.
but you can control your own energy, your own boundaries, and ultimately your own happiness.
I love that. So beautifully said. It's about reclaiming your power and not letting toxic people control your emotional well-being.
You get to decide how you feel.
That's right.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the wisdom path, it really strikes me how practical this advice is for actually dealing with toxic people. It's not just like a bunch of theories, it's really giving you tangible steps and tools.
It's like a toolkit.
Yeah, it's like they've anticipated every tricky situation you could find yourself in, and they've given you a roadmap to get through it.
I love that, a roadmap. Okay, so remember those sugar-coated poison people?
Oh, yeah.
The wisdom path reminds us to trust our gut. If someone's being overly nice, but something just feels a little off, pay attention to those red flags.
Hit those subtle cues.
And look for those inconsistencies. Do their words actually match up with their actions?
Right. Are they walking their talk?
Exactly. And then once you've kind of identified those energy drainers, the wisdom path gives us those tools to protect ourselves. Remember those mental distancing techniques?
Yeah.
Visualizing that shield.
Oh, yeah, that invisible shield.
Yes, deflecting all that negativity or that strong-rooted tree.
Unfazed by the wind.
Yes.
So good.
It's like taking back control of your own mental and emotional space and not letting them rent space in your head.
Protect your headspace.
Yes, exactly. And if you do find yourself in a confrontation, remember those disengagement tactics, like responding with neutrality.
Right, just be neutral.
Shifting the topic,
Yeah.
excusing yourself from the conversation. You don't have to engage in their game.
You have the power to opt out.
Yes, and if things escalate, set those clear boundaries. I'd rather not discuss this.
Right, just shut it down.
Shut it down. It's about protecting yourself and protecting your energy.
Right.
And speaking of energy, don't forget about the importance of self-care.
Yes, fill your cup back up.
Yes, the wisdom path really emphasizes that. Like, replenish your energy after dealing with those difficult people.
It's essential.
Engage in those activities that bring you joy. Whether it's being out in nature or listening to your favorite music or, taking a bath, whatever works for you.
Take care of yourself.
It's like that antidote to the negativity.
Right. You got to replenish those good vibes.
Okay, and the wisdom path also reminds us that forgiveness can be a powerful tool for letting go of anger and resentment. But it's not about saying that what they did was okay.
Right. It's not condoning their behavior.
It's about freeing yourself from that burden.
It's about you.
It is.
Yeah.
Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting them.
No, you still learn from those experiences.
Right. Remember those patterns so you can protect yourself.
So you don't get fooled again.
Exactly. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. All right. So one of the biggest takeaways from the wisdom path for me is this whole idea of choosing your own happiness.
Oh, yes. You have the power.
You are not responsible for other people's emotions, and you don't have to let their negativity, control how you feel.
It's so liberating.
It is. It's about taking back your power and choosing joy, even when you're surrounded by negativity.
Choose joy.
So powerful. Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the wisdom path.
It's been such a pleasure exploring all these strategies with you.
Me too. And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this journey. We hope you gained some valuable insights and tools for navigating those tricky waters of dealing with difficult people.
Remember, you are not alone in this, and you have everything you need to create a life filled with peace and joy.
Beautifully said. So until next time, stay wise, stay strong, and keep shining your light.